"Don't cry, sir, I'll lend you my mom, what?" said the poor boy to the sad millionaire. Harrison Sterling felt the cold of the December dawn seep into his bones as he remained seated on that bench in Millennium Park in Chicago. The tears streaming down his face mixed with the artificial snowflakes falling from the Christmas decorations, creating a melancholy atmosphere that perfectly mirrored his state of mind. His life had crumbled in a matter of hours, and now there he was, one of the most powerful businessmen in Illinois, crying alone on Christmas Eve. It was then that he felt a small hand gently touching his arm. Looking up, he saw a boy of about 7, wearing a worn red coat and a wool hat with a pom-pom, watching him with curious and concerned eyes. "You're crying," said the boy with the typical sincerity of children. "My mum always says crying is bad for the heart." Harrison tried to hide it, quickly wiping the tears with the back of his hand, but the boy remained there, still, as if waiting for a response. "I'm okay, little one. Don't worry about me," murmured Harrison, his voice rough with contained emotion. "My mum says that when someone cries it's because they need a hug," continued the boy, completely ignoring the adult's evasive answer. "Do you want a hug?" The question caught Harrison completely off guard. When was the last time someone offered him a sincere hug? When was the last time someone showed genuine concern for his well-being? "Look, I know I don't know you, but my mom always says we can't leave sad people alone," said the boy, climbing onto the bench next to Harrison. "She works there in that big building." He pointed to a nearby office building. "She's cleaning the offices now." "What's your name?" asked Harrison, intrigued by the child's captivating personality. "Toby Jenkins," replied the boy with a smile. "And you? Harrison?" "Just Harrison? My mom always says a full name is more polite." Harrison couldn't help a half smile. "Harrison Sterling." Toby nodded approvingly. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Harrison. Why are you crying on Christmas Eve? Everyone should be happy today." The simple question hit Harrison like a punch in the stomach. How to explain to a 7-year-old boy that his wife had asked for a divorce that morning? How to tell him that she took away not only his family dreams, but also a good part of his fortune? How to explain that he discovered she had been planning this for months, together with her lawyer, who, by a twist of fate, was his best friend since college? "Sometimes adults get sad over complicated things," said Harrison, trying to find words suitable for the boy's age. "My mum was very sad when my dad left," said Toby, swinging his little legs that didn't reach the ground. "She cried a lot, but then she said we would be okay, just the two of us, and we are." "Your dad left?" asked Harrison, interested despite himself. "Yes, my mom says he wasn't ready to have a special child. I learn slower than the other boys, you know." "But I learn," said Toby naturally, without any trace of bitterness. "My mom takes me to a school where there are other boys like me, and Miss June says I'm very smart. I just need more time." The maturity with which the boy spoke about his condition impressed Harrison. Here was a child who had faced paternal abandonment and dealt with his own difficulties, yet maintained a positive attitude toward life. "Your mum seems like a very special person," commented Harrison. "She is. She's the best mum in the world," said Toby enthusiastically. "She works really hard so we can have our little house and my school. Sometimes she gets tired, but she always finds time to play with me and help me with my homework. And where do you live?" "Over there in the south side." Toby pointed to a simple housing complex visible a few blocks away. "Our house is really small, but my mum says a house doesn't need to be big. It needs to be full of love." Harrison felt a tightness in his chest. His mansion in the Gold Coast neighborhood had 12 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a pool, sauna, private gym, and even a home theater. But it had never been full of love. Even when he was married, he and Victoria lived like polite strangers sharing the same space. "Mr. Harrison, do you have a family?" asked Toby. "I did. But not anymore," replied Harrison, the pain renewed by the simplicity of the question. Toby was silent for a few moments, as if processing the information. Then, with the spontaneity typical of children, he said, "Then don't cry, sir. I'll lend you my mom. She's really good at making people feel better." The words came out so naturally, so full of innocence and generosity, that Harrison felt the tears return to his eyes. This time, however, they weren't just tears of sadness, but also of emotion at the kindness of that child. "You would lend me your mom?" asked Harrison, touched by the offer. "Of course. My mom always says we have to help those in need. And you are in need, right? Said Toby, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She should be getting off work now. Do you want me to go get her? Harrison hesitated. It was a completely surreal situation. There he was, Harrison Sterling, owner of one of the largest construction companies in Illinois, being comforted by a child who offered to lend his mother. What kind of woman would be the mother of this extraordinary boy? If it's not a bother for her, Harrison finally said. It won't be, Toby assured him, jumping off the bench with energy. She always says we have to be kind to everyone. Stay here, I'll go get her. Before Harrison could change his mind, Toby ran off towards the commercial building, his red coat standing out in the Christmas landscape. Harrison stayed there, alone again, but this time with a strange feeling of expectation. 15 minutes later, he saw Toby returning, holding a woman's hand. Even from a distance, Harrison could tell she was young, probably in her mid-20s, and that she walked with the tired posture of someone who had worked all night. As they got closer, Harrison could see better. She was a pretty woman with delicate features and brown hair tied in a simple ponytail. She wore a blue cleaning uniform under a worn coat and carried an old bag on her shoulder. Her eyes, when they met his, were kind but cautious. "Mom, this is Mr. Harrison I told you about," said Toby, pulling his mother's hand. "He was crying here all alone." "Toby, you can't just run off like that and bother people," she said in a soft but firm voice. Then, addressing Harrison, "I'm sorry, sir, my son is sometimes very spontaneous." "Please don't apologize," said Harrison, rising from the bench. "I'm the one who should apologize for worrying your son." She studied him for a few moments. Harrison knew he must be a strange sight, a man in an expensive suit sitting alone in a park at 2 in the morning with clear signs of having cried. "I'm Rachel Jenkins," she said finally, extending her hand. "Toby's mother, as he must have told you. Harrison Sterling. It's a pleasure to meet you, Rachel." When their hands touched, Harrison felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a genuine human connection. Carla's hands were rough from work, but her handshake was firm and warm. "Mom, Mr. Harrison is sad because he doesn't have any family left," said Toby, without beating around the bush. "I said we could help him." Carla shot a reproachful look at her son, but Harrison could see the compassion in her eyes when she looked at him again. "Toby is right about one thing," she said softly. "No one should be alone on Christmas Eve. If you'd like, our home is simple, but there's always room for one more at the table." The offer was as unexpected as it was touching. Harrison tried to process what he had just heard. A woman who didn't know him, who worked all night to support her son, was inviting him to Christmas at her home. "I couldn't possibly accept," said Harrison. "You don't even know me." "My mom always says family isn't just blood, it's who you choose to love," said Toby, as if reciting a well-learned lesson. "And sad people need family." Carla smiled at her son. "He's right. Besides, I'm used to his ideas by now. Toby has a gift for finding people who need care." "How so?" asked Harrison. "Last year he brought home an elderly gentleman who was alone at Christmas. Mr. Walter became practically family. He comes over for dinner every Sunday," explained Carla. "And last month he adopted an abandoned puppy, said she needed some love." Harrison looked at Toby, who smiled proudly. "You do this often? Find people who need help?" "It's not hard," said Toby simply. "Sad people have a different look, just like you had when I got here." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The child's perception was frighteningly accurate. Harrison realized he had spent years developing a mask of success and control, but that the previous night he had let all his defenses down. "So?" asked Carla, interrupting his thoughts. "Do you accept the invitation? It's nothing special, but we have roast turkey in the oven and rice pudding for dessert." Harrison looked at mother and son. Here he was being offered something all his money couldn't buy. Genuine welcome. No ulterior motives, no financial interest, just human kindness in its purest form. "If it's really no trouble," he said finally. "It won't be," exclaimed Toby, clapping his hands. "We're going to have the best Christmas ever." As they walked through the neighborhood streets toward Carla's house, Harrison had time to observe his new friends better. Toby chattered non-stop, talking about school, his friends, the teacher who was teaching him to read. Carla walked in silence, but Harrison could tell she was tired. "Did you work all night?" he asked. "It's the normal shift. I work from 8 at night to 6 in the morning," replied Carla. "It's better that way because during the day I can take care of Toby and get him to school." "And when do you sleep?" "Usually when Toby is at school," she said matter-of-factly. "Monday through Friday, from 7 in the morning to noon. It's enough." Harrison did a quick mental calculation. 5 hours of sleep a day. He complained when he got less than 8. "That must be very tiring," he remarked. "You get used to it," said Carla, but Harrison could see the shadows of fatigue around her eyes. The house in the south side was indeed small, as Toby had said. 2 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen and bathroom. But it was impeccably clean and tidy, and the walls were decorated with Toby's drawings and some family photos. "Come in, make yourself at home," said Carla, turning on the lights. "Toby, go get changed and brush your teeth while I finish making dinner." "Can I show my room to Mr. Harrison?" asked Toby. "Yes, but make it quick. The roast turkey should be almost ready." Toby's room was small but cozy. A single bed, a simple desk, and shelves made from cratewood, full of children's books and simple toys. On the wall, school certificates and drawings with little gold stars stuck on by the teacher. "Look," said Toby, picking up a notebook. "These are my best drawings. Ms. June says I draw really well." Harrison looked at the drawings. They were typical for a child, but there was something special about them. They all showed smiling people, houses with hearts on the chimney, trees with heart-shaped leaves. "This one is me and my mum," said Toby, pointing to a drawing where 2 figures holding hands smiled under a rainbow. "And this is my dad," before he left. The drawing of his father showed a figure that was more faded, less defined than the others, as if Toby had trouble remembering the details. "Do you miss him?" asked Harrison, immediately regretting the intrusive question. Toby thought for a moment. "Sometimes. But my mum says he didn't know how to be a father to a special boy, and that it's not his fault or mine. She says some people aren't ready for certain kinds of love." The maturity of the answer impressed Harrison. At 7 years old, Toby already had an understanding of abandonment and forgiveness that many adults took decades to develop. "Your mother is very wise," commented Harrison. "Yeah, she knows everything. Even how to make roast turkey taste good, even when it's small," said Toby proudly. They went back to the living room, where Rachel was setting the table. Harrison noticed she had changed out of her work uniform into a simple dress, but had kept her hair tied back. The table was set with mismatched plates, some glass, some porcelain, probably leftovers from sets that had broken over the years. "Please, have a seat," said Rachel. "The roast turkey is ready." During dinner, Harrison learned more about Rachel and Toby's life. She had gotten pregnant at 19 while dating Derek, Toby's father. When they found out the baby had Down syndrome, Derek couldn't handle the situation and disappeared before the birth. "It was very difficult at first," admitted Rachel, cutting small pieces of roast turkey for Toby. "I was very young. I didn't understand anything about Toby's special needs. My parents helped as much as they could, but they were learning too." "And now? What's it like?" asked Harrison. "Now it's a normal life," said Rachel with a smile. "Toby goes to a special school. He's learning to read and write. He's a very affectionate and smart boy. He just needs more time for some things." "I can read some words," said Toby proudly. "Do you want me to read for you, Mr. Harrison?" Toby ran to his room and came back with a children's book. With his tongue out, concentrating, he slowly read a few simple sentences. Each word was a small victory celebrated by both him and his mother. "Very good, Toby," said Harrison, genuinely impressed. "You read very well." "Ms. June says next year I'll be able to read bigger books," said Toby. "I want to read books about animals. I really like animals." After dinner, they sat in the small living room. Rachel served homemade rice pudding, and Toby turned on the TV to a Christmas program. The simplicity of the moment contrasted dramatically with all of Harrison's previous Christmases, always marked by formal dinners at expensive restaurants or at home with business guests. "Can I ask a personal question?" Rachel said to Harrison when Toby got distracted by the program. "Of course." "What happened to you today? Toby said you were very sad." Harrison hesitated. How to explain the collapse of his life to a woman who worked every night to give her son a decent life? "My wife asked for a divorce this morning," he finally said. "I found out she had been planning this for months together with my best friend, who is her lawyer." Rachel made a look of understanding. "That must have been a huge shock." "It was. I thought we had a good marriage. We weren't close, but I thought that was normal. That successful couples were like that." Why did she want to separate? Harrison reflected on the conversation from that morning. Victoria had been brutally honest. She said she had married him for the status and the money, but that in recent years she had realized she wanted more from life. She wanted passion, adventure, travel around the world, things that Harrison, obsessed with work, had never offered. She said I was empty, that our life was empty, that I worked too much and never dedicated time for us to build something real together, said Harrison, the pain still fresh in his voice. "And was she right?" asked Rachel gently. The question caught Harrison off guard with its direct honesty. "I think so," he admitted. "I work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. My company is my life, or it was at least." Why was? Because she got half of everything. The house, the bank accounts, part of the company shares. Overnight, half my life disappeared. Toby approached the conversation. "Are you sad because you lost your house?" "Partly, yes. But a house is just where we sleep," said Toby, with the simplicity of children. "The important thing is to have people who like us." Harrison looked at the boy. "And what if the people who liked us leave?" "Then we find new people," said Toby as if it were obvious. "Just like I did with you today." The child's logic made more sense than all the complex analyses Harrison had done about his life in the last few hours. They talked until late into the night. Rachel talked about her dreams. She wanted to go back to studying, maybe take a technical course in administration. She always liked numbers and organization. Toby talked about his drawings and his friends from school. Harrison found himself telling stories from his own childhood, things he hadn't remembered in years. "Where are you going to stay tonight?" asked Rachel when the TV show ended and Toby started yawning. "I don't know," admitted Harrison. "I don't want to go home yet. It's complicated there." "You can sleep on the couch if you want," offered Rachel. "It's not very comfortable, but it's better than being on the street." "I couldn't accept. You've already done too much for me." "My mom always lets people sleep here when they need to," said Toby, rubbing his eyes. "Mr. Walter has slept here several times when his apartment had no power." "It's decided then," said Rachel. "I'll get some blankets. Toby, go brush your teeth and get ready for bed." While Rachel arranged the couch and Toby got ready for bed, Harrison found himself watching that small family functioning. There was something harmonious in those simple, everyday movements, a synchronization based on love and mutual care. When Toby came out of the bathroom in his pajamas, he ran to say goodnight to Harrison. "Thank you for coming to dinner with us, Mr. Harrison. It was the best Christmas I've ever had." "Why?" asked Harrison, touched by the statement. "Because we helped someone who was in need. My mom always says the best thing about Christmas is being able to help." After Toby went to sleep, Rachel brought blankets and pillows for Harrison. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. I don't know how to repay your kindness." "You don't need to repay anything," said Rachel. "Sometimes life puts people in our path when they need each other most." "Do you believe that?" "I do. Toby taught me that. He has an incredible ability to find people who need love at the right moment." When Rachel went to sleep, Harrison was left alone in the dark living room, covered in blankets that smelled of cheap fabric softener, but were warm and cozy. For the first time in years, he felt truly at home. That night, Harrison dreamed of a different life. He dreamed of family dinners, children's laughter, genuine hugs. He dreamed of a house that was small but full of love, as opposed to the mansion that was large but empty. When he woke up on Christmas morning, for a few moments he forgot where he was and felt a pang of panic at not recognizing his surroundings. Then he heard Toby's laughter from the kitchen and remembered everything. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," shouted Toby when he appeared in the kitchen. "My mom is making sweet rolls for breakfast." Rachel was standing at the stove, stirring something in a pot. She had changed out of the dress from the night before into a simple blouse and jeans, and her hair was loose over her shoulders. "Good morning," she said, turning to greet him. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I expected," Harrison answered honestly. "And you? Did you manage to get some rest?" "I did. It's rare for me to sleep more than 4 hours straight, so it was actually good." During breakfast, Toby excitedly told about the presents Santa Claus had brought, a building set and a new storybook. Harrison noticed they were simple but thoughtfully chosen gifts, likely costing a good part of Rachel's tight budget. "And you, Mr. Harrison, did Santa bring you a present?" asked Toby. Harrison smiled sadly. "I guess he didn't know where to find me this year." "Then you can share mine," offered Toby immediately, pushing the building set toward Harrison. "We can build it together." The boy's spontaneous generosity touched Harrison deeply. Here was a child who had few toys offering to share his Christmas present with a stranger. They spent the morning putting the puzzle together. Toby had trouble fitting some pieces and would get frustrated, but he never gave up. Rachel watched them from the kitchen as she prepared the Christmas lunch, a simple roast turkey, but seasoned with a lot of love. "Toby," said Harrison during a break in the building, "can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "Why did you stop to talk to me yesterday? Most kids would be scared of a stranger." Toby thought seriously about the question. "My mom taught me that we have to help people who are hurt. And you were hurt on the inside, right? How did you know?" "Because you were crying like I cried when my dad left. My mom made me feel better, so I thought she could make you feel better too." The comparison between his pain and Toby's made Harrison reflect. A 7-year-old child had understood and dealt with abandonment in a more mature way than he had managed to at 42. After lunch, Rachel suggested a walk through the park where it had all begun. It was a sunny day and many families were enjoying Christmas outdoors. Toby ran ahead, pointing out decorations and greeting people he knew. "He's very popular," commented Harrison. "Toby makes friends easily. People feel good around him," said Rachel. "It's a gift he has." "And you? Do you have many friends?" Rachel hesitated. "Not many. The night work and taking care of Toby take up most of my time, but I have a few friends from the building where I work, other moms from Toby's school." "Isn't it lonely?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But Toby fills up a lot of my life. And I learned that quality is more important than quantity, both in friendships and in anything else." They sat on the same bench where Harrison had cried the night before. The transformation in his perspective in just a few hours was remarkable. The same square that had been a scene of despair now seemed a place of renewal. "Rachel, can I ask you something?" said Harrison. "Of course." "Aren't you afraid of raising Toby alone, of working so much, of having no guarantees about the future?" She reflected on the question. "I am afraid, yes. Afraid of getting sick and not being able to take care of him. Afraid of not being able to give him everything he deserves. Afraid that he'll face prejudice in the future. But I've discovered that fear can't paralyze us. It has to be a motivator." "How so?" "My fear of not being able to support Toby motivates me to work hard. My fear that he'll suffer motivates me to teach him to be strong and confident. Fear can be positive if we use it right." Harrison absorbed Rachel's life philosophy. He had spent years avoiding risks, building financial and professional security, but he had never thought about using fear as a positive motivation. "And you?" asked Rachel. "What are you afraid of now?" "Of starting over," admitted Harrison. "Of discovering that maybe I'm not as successful as I thought. Of being alone." "But you're not alone," said Toby, who had come running back from where he was playing. "You have us now." The child's simple but profound declaration echoed in Harrison's heart. In less than 24 hours, he had found something he had been searching for years without knowing: a genuine human connection. In the late afternoon, when it was time for Harrison to leave, he felt a strange reluctance. He didn't want to return to his empty mansion, to the divorce negotiations, to the coldness of his previous life. "You know where to find us," said Rachel at the door of the house, "if you need to talk, or if you feel lonely. You can come have dinner with us whenever you want," added Toby. "We can finish the puzzle." Harrison said goodbye with a hug from Toby and a respectful handshake from Rachel. When he left the South Side, he took with him more than he had brought. He took a new perspective on what really mattered in life. The following days were an emotional roller coaster for Harrison. The meetings with lawyers, the division of assets, the details of the divorce. All of it became more bearable because now he had something to think about beyond the pain and anger. He thought of Toby putting together puzzles, of Rachel waking up early to prepare her son's breakfast before going to sleep, of the simple generosity of that small family. 1 week after Christmas, Harrison found himself driving to the South Side again. He hadn't arranged the visit. He simply felt like seeing how Rachel and Toby were. He arrived in the late afternoon when he knew Rachel would be awake and Toby would be returning from school. He knocked on the door with some hesitation. What if they didn't want to see him? What if the Christmas kindness had been just a temporary courtesy? "Mr. Harrison," shouted Toby when he opened the door, as if Harrison were a beloved relative he hadn't seen in ages. "Mom, Mr. Harrison came to visit us." Rachel appeared at the door, drying her hands on a dish towel. Her smile was genuine and warm. "What a nice surprise! Come in, come in." "I hope I'm not disturbing," said Harrison. "Of course not. I was just preparing a snack for Toby. Would you like some coffee?" They sat at the small kitchen table. Toby excitedly showed the homework he had done at school, and Rachel told about her work night the day before. "How are you?" she asked. "How are things with the divorce?" "Complicated," admitted Harrison, "but more bearable than I imagined. You taught me some important things at Christmas." "We did?" asked Toby, curious. "What?" "You taught me that family isn't about having a big house or a lot of money. It's about people who care about each other." Toby nodded seriously. "That's true, we don't have a big house or a lot of money, but we're happy." "Exactly, and you showed me that helping people makes us feel better too." "How so?" asked Rachel. Harrison took an envelope from his pocket. "I'd like to help you if you'll let me. I found out Toby needs some specialized therapies that aren't available through the public system. I'd like to pay for them." Rachel looked visibly uncomfortable. "Harrison, that's very generous, but I can't accept. We didn't do what we did expecting anything in return." "I know you didn't. That's exactly why I want to do this. You gave me something priceless. Let me repay you in some way." "What kind of therapies?" asked Rachel, her concern for her son overcoming her pride. "Specialized speech therapy, occupational therapy, maybe individualized tutoring. Things that can help Toby develop his full potential." Toby looked from Harrison to his mother. "What is that?" "They're extra lessons that can help you learn even better," explained Rachel. "I want to," said Toby immediately. "If it'll help me read bigger books, I want to." Rachel still hesitated. "Harrison, that must cost a fortune. I can't let you spend so much money on us." "Rachel, you work 14 hours a day to give Toby the best. Let me help. It's not charity. It's an investment in a family that took me in when I needed it most." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The discussion continued for a few more minutes, but finally Rachel agreed on the condition that she could pay it back someday when her financial situation improved. "It's not a loan, Rachel, it's a gift. Just like you gave me the gift of companionship when I needed it most," said Harrison. "Can Mr. Harrison have dinner with us tonight?" asked Toby. "If it's not a bother, it's never a bother," said Rachel. "But tonight it's just pasta with sausages, nothing special." "For me it will be special," said Harrison sincerely. That evening, as they ate pasta with sausages at the small kitchen table, Harrison realized he was genuinely happy for the first time in months. The food was simple, the house was small, but the company was priceless. After dinner, Toby asked Harrison to read him a story. They settled on the sofa, Toby leaning against Harrison as he slowly read a book about farm animals. Rachel watched them from the kitchen, washing dishes, with an expression of contentment. "Mr. Harrison," said Toby when they finished the story, "can you be my dad?" The question took everyone by surprise. Rachel dropped a cup in the sink, and Harrison felt his heart race. "Toby," scolded Rachel, visibly embarrassed. "You can't ask that kind of question." "Why not?" asked Toby, genuinely confused. "Mr. Harrison is kind, he likes to read with me, and he helped me with the therapies. Isn't that what dads do?" Harrison looked at Rachel, who was red with embarrassment. "Toby, things don't work like that. Being a dad is more complicated than that." "But didn't you say family is who we choose to love?" argued Toby with the relentless logic of children. "I did, but then I choose Mr. Harrison to be my dad, and you to be my mom, just like you've always been." The simplicity with which Toby viewed the situation contrasted with the complexity the adults created around relationships and commitments. "Toby, go brush your teeth," said Rachel, clearly needing a moment to compose herself. When Toby left the room, Rachel sat on the sofa next to Harrison. "I'm sorry about that. He sometimes speaks without thinking." "Don't apologize," said Harrison softly. "He just expressed what I've been feeling too." Rachel looked at him surprised. "What?" "That I found a family. That I found people I truly care about and who care about me." Toby may not understand all the implications of what he asked, but he understood the essential part. "Harrison, I know it's early to talk about this, too. We've only known each other for a week, but you and Toby have changed my life in a way I didn't think was possible." Rachel was silent for a few moments, processing Harrison's words. "Are you sure it's not just a reaction to the divorce? Sometimes when we're vulnerable, we confuse gratitude with other feelings." "It could be," admitted Harrison. "But even if it is, what I feel for the two of you is real. The way Toby makes me laugh, how your stories make me forget my problems, the way you make me want to be a better person." Toby returned from the bathroom and found the two adults talking seriously. "Are you talking about grown-up stuff?" he asked. "We are," said Rachel. "Come here. I'm going to take you to bed." "Can I say good night to Mr. Harrison?" "Of course." Toby ran to give Harrison a hug. "Thank you for reading the story with me. You read better than my mom." "Hey," protested Rachel, pretending to be offended. "It's true, Mom. But you make the best pasta in the world, so it's a tie." After Rachel put Toby to sleep, they went back to talking in the living room. "Harrison, I need to be honest with you," said Rachel. "I also feel something, but I'm scared." "Of what?" "That you'll get tired of our simple life. That you'll realize you can have any woman you want, not a cleaner with a special needs son. That all this is just a phase until you get over the divorce." Harrison took Rachel's hands in his. "Rachel, in the last 5 days since I met you, I've felt more alive than in the last 5 years. For the first time, I have a reason to get out of bed that isn't work. For the first time, I care about someone more than myself." "But our lives are so different." "They were different," corrected Harrison. "Now I want them to be the same. I want to be part of your family, if you'll have me." Rachel looked into Harrison's eyes, searching for signs of uncertainty or fantasy. What she saw was absolute sincerity. "We need to take it slow," she said finally. "Because of Toby, he's already become attached to you, and if things don't work out—" "They will work out," said Harrison with conviction. "Because now I know what's important in life. And you are what's important." That night, when Harrison returned to his empty mansion, the house seemed even more sterile and cold than before. Compared to Rachel's cozy home, all his luxuries seemed empty and unnecessary. He spent the next week organizing his new life. He hired the best professionals for Toby's therapies, but made sure everything was conducted in a way that respected Rachel's routine and preferences. He also began reorganizing his work schedule, delegating more responsibilities, and setting clear boundaries between his professional and personal life. On the weekend, he took Rachel and Toby to see his house. Toby's reaction was predictable. He was impressed by the size, the pool, the state-of-the-art video game. But after a few hours, he asked when they were going back home. "Isn't this your home too?" asked Harrison. "It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like a home," said Toby with honesty. "It feels like a hotel." Rachel tried to scold him, but Harrison laughed. "He's right. This house was never a real home. It was just a place to keep expensive things." "We could transform it," suggested Rachel timidly. "Make it more welcoming. Would you do that? Would you move here? I don't know, said Rachel. It's too big, too different from what we're used to. Then let's find a middle ground. Let's look for a house that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. The idea of building something new together seemed to please Rachel. During the following weeks, they looked for houses. Harrison discovered that his priorities had completely changed. Instead of caring about resale value or the status of the address, now he worried about things like proximity to Toby's school, a backyard for the child to play in, and spaces where they could be together as a family. They found a house in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, medium-sized with 3 bedrooms, a large backyard, and a cozy living area. Rachel fell in love with the spacious kitchen and the laundry area that would finally allow her to have her own washing machine. "Are you sure?" she asked when Harrison suggested they make an offer. "It's too expensive for me." "It's not for you, it's for us," said Harrison. "We're going to be a family, remember? Families share everything." The process of buying and moving brought the 3 of them even closer. Toby actively participated in choosing furniture for his new room, and Rachel gradually began to feel comfortable with the idea of sharing a life with Harrison. Rachel decided to quit her cleaning job. With Harrison supporting the household, she could finally realize her dream of going back to school. She enrolled in a technical course in administration, with classes in the afternoon when Toby was in school. "I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up," she confessed to Harrison the night before classes started. "It's been a long time since I studied." "You're the smartest person I know," said Harrison sincerely. "You managed to raise an extraordinary child alone, run a household on a tight budget, and still find the energy to be kind to strangers. A technical course will be easy for you." The first weeks in the new house were an adjustment for everyone. Toby had to get used to the new school, closer to home. Rachel had to adjust to her study routine, and Harrison had to learn to balance work with family life. But gradually, they developed a harmonious routine. Harrison woke up early to prepare breakfast, while Rachel got ready and Toby got dressed for school. After dropping Toby off at school, Harrison went to work and Rachel went to her classes. In the late afternoon, they would gather for dinner and talk about how each one's day had been. On nights when Rachel had a lot to study, Harrison helped Toby with his homework and put him to bed. He discovered he had the patience to repeat explanations as many times as necessary, and that the joy on Toby's face when he finally understood something new was worth all the effort. 6 months after the Christmas when it all began, Harrison asked Rachel to marry him. It wasn't a grand proposal or in an exotic location. It was in their kitchen on a Sunday afternoon while they were making cookies with Toby. "Rachel," he said, taking a small box from his pocket, "will you marry me?" Toby stopped mixing the dough and looked attentively at his mother. Rachel had flour on her hands and sugar in her hair, but she was radiant. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." "And me?" asked Toby. "Can I marry you guys too?" "Of course," said Harrison, picking Toby up. "We're going to be a real family, officially." "Yay!" shouted Toby. "Can I call you Dad now?" Harrison felt his eyes fill with tears. "Go ahead, son." The wedding was simple, held in the backyard of the new house, with few guests, some of Rachel's friends, Mr. Walter, whom Toby had adopted the previous year, Harrison's co-workers, and Rachel's parents, who came from Joliet especially for the ceremony. Toby was the ring-bearer, carrying the rings with the seriousness of someone with an important mission. During the ceremony, when the minister asked if there was any impediment to the marriage, Toby shouted, "There can't be an impediment. I waited a long time to have a father." The phrase drew laughter from everyone present, but also tears of emotion. On their honeymoon, which was just a weekend at a mountain inn in Illinois, because none of the 3 wanted to be separated from the others for too long, Rachel confided her future plans to Harrison. "I want to start an organization and cleaning company," she said. "I learned a lot about management in my course, and I know the cleaning business well. I think I can offer a differentiated service." "It's a great idea," said Harrison. "I can help with the seed capital and business contacts." "I want to try it on my own first," said Rachel. "I need to prove to myself that I can do it." Harrison understood and respected his wife's desire for independence. He offered moral and practical support, but let her run the business according to her vision. Rachel's company, Care Clean Services, started small but grew quickly due to the quality of service and the respectful treatment she gave both clients and employees. Within 2 years, she had 15 people working for her, all with formal contracts and benefits above the industry average. Toby, now 10 years old, had progressed enormously with therapy. He was learning to play the guitar, had become a swimming champion in competitions for children with Down syndrome, and showed a special talent for drawing. Harrison framed all of Toby's drawings and hung them in the construction company's office, where clients often commented on the different and touching art on the walls. Harrison's construction company also underwent transformations. Inspired by Rachel and Toby's philosophy of life, he implemented social programs for employees, including on-site daycare, extended health insurance for families, and professional development opportunities. The company became a benchmark for social responsibility, and paradoxically, this improved its profitability as it attracted clients who valued ethical businesses. One December afternoon, 3 years after that Christmas that changed everything, the family was decorating the Christmas tree in their living room. Toby, now taller and more articulate, was directing the decoration operation. "Daddy, this ornament goes here," he said, pointing to a specific branch. "Mom, can you put those bells up there?" Harrison watched the scene with emotion. He remembered himself 3 years earlier, sitting alone on that park bench, convinced his life was over. Now surrounded by Toby's laughter and Rachel's smile, he knew his life had actually begun that night. "What are you thinking about?" asked Rachel, noticing his contemplative expression. "I'm thinking about how a 7-year-old boy managed to save me," replied Harrison. "You saved us too," said Rachel. "Toby gained a father who loves him unconditionally, and I gained a partner who makes me want to be better every day." "I didn't save you. You already had everything that mattered. Love, unity, purpose. You're the ones who taught me what those words mean." Toby stopped arranging the decorations and approached his parents. "Can I say something?" "Of course, son. I think Santa Claus was real that day in the park." "Why?" asked Rachel. "Because I asked him to bring a dad for me and a bigger family for Mommy, and he sent Dad right when we needed him most." Harrison picked Toby up in his arms. "And I asked to find a real family. I think Santa Claus answered all our wishes." "It was the best gift he could have given," said Rachel, hugging them both. That night, after Toby fell asleep, Harrison and Rachel sat on the bench they had placed in the backyard, in honor of the place where they met. It was a tradition they had developed. Whenever they wanted to talk about something important, they would sit on that bench. "Are you happy?" Harrison asked Rachel. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she replied. "And you?" "I didn't even know what real happiness was before I met you all. I thought happiness was professional success, money, recognition. Now I know that happiness is Toby waking me up on Saturday to make pancakes. It's you telling me about the company's plans. It's hearing you two laughing in the kitchen when I get home." "We have been blessed," said Rachel. "And we have a responsibility," added Harrison, "to repay that blessing." "What do you mean?" "I want to expand the company's social programs, create a foundation to help other families like ours. Single mothers with special needs children, kids who need therapies, people who just need an opportunity. It's a beautiful idea. Toby would love knowing we're helping other children. We can involve him in the projects. Let him participate, choose some of the families we'll help. He has a gift for identifying who really needs support." They talked late into the night about the plans for the foundation. They decided to call it the Toby Foundation, in honor of the boy who had taught them both about true generosity. The following year, the Toby Foundation had helped 50 families. They offered scholarships for specialized therapies, support for mothers who wanted to return to school, and job training programs. Toby, now 11 years old, actively participated in the activities, helping to deliver food baskets and toys, always with the same generous smile that had won Harrison over that first night. During one of the foundation's visits, they met Heather, a 22-year-old mother with a 5-year-old autistic son. She was in a situation very similar to what Rachel had faced years before, working 3 jobs, sleeping little, struggling to give her son the support he needed. "Your story reminds me a lot of my own," Rachel said to Heather during a conversation. "I know exactly how you feel." "It's very hard," admitted Heather. "Sometimes I think I won't make it, that I'm not good enough for him." "You are a wonderful mother," Rachel said firmly. "The fact that you're here seeking help for your son proves that, and I want you to know you're not alone." The foundation not only offered material support for Heather and her son, but also created an emotional support network. Rachel became Heather's mentor, and Toby became friends with her son, Noah. "Mom," Toby said one night after a visit to Heather and Noah, "we're doing what you always taught, right?" "What's that?" "We're taking care of those in need, just like you took care of me, just like Dad took care of us." "Exactly, son. That's how love works. It multiplies when we share it. So the more we help, the more love we'll have." "That's right." Toby was thoughtful for a moment. "Then let's help a whole lot of people." The Toby Foundation grew and became a reference for supporting families with special needs, children in Illinois. Harrison further reduced his time at the construction company to dedicate himself to the social projects, discovering that this work gave him a satisfaction that business never had. Rachel expanded her cleaning company and began preferentially hiring single mothers and people in socially vulnerable situations, offering training and opportunities for professional growth. Her company became a model of social inclusion in the job market. 5 years after that transformative Christmas, they received an unexpected visit. It was Derek, Toby's biological father, who had disappeared when he learned of his son's Down syndrome. "Rachel," he said nervously at their doorstep, "I know I have no right to be here, but I would like to meet my son." Toby, now 12 years old, observed the man with curiosity. There was no anger or resentment in his eyes, only genuine interest. "Are you my first dad?" Toby asked directly. Derek was taken aback by the question and by the phrase, "first dad." I am your biological father, yes." "Cool," said Toby. "Do you want to meet my second dad? He's really cool, and my mum is here too, of course." The simplicity and lack of hurt in Toby's reaction completely disarmed Derek. Harrison and Rachel, who had grown tense at the unexpected appearance, relaxed upon seeing how Toby handled the situation naturally. During the conversation that followed, Derek explained that he had spent years feeling guilty about the abandonment. He had married and had other children, but he could never forget Toby. When he learned about the success of the Toby Foundation through news reports, he decided to seek out the family. "I didn't come here to claim anything," he said. "I know I lost that right a long time ago. I just would like Toby to know that I think about him, and that I'm proud of the man he is becoming." "It's cool that you say that," said Toby, "but I already know you weren't ready to be the father of a special boy. My mom explained it to me, and now I have Dad Harrison, who was ready." "You call him Dad?" "Of course, he is my real father. A father isn't the one who made the baby, it's the one who cares, teaches, plays, and loves. You are my biological father, but Dad Harrison is my real father." Toby's explanation, given without malice but with absolute clarity, deeply touched both Derek and the adults present. Can I visit him sometimes?" asked Derek. "I promise I won't try to interfere with your family." Harrison and Rachel exchanged glances. The decision should be theirs as a family. "What do you think, Toby?" asked Harrison. Toby thought seriously. "I think it's okay, but you have to understand that Dad Harrison is my main father and that our family is already complete. You can be like a distant uncle who visits sometimes." The emotional maturity of the 12-year-old boy impressed everyone. He had set clear boundaries without completely rejecting Derek. Derek's visits became sporadic and always supervised. Gradually, he began contributing financially to the Toby Foundation as a way to participate in his son's life constructively without interfering in the family dynamic that Harrison, Rachel, and Toby had built. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out, now continuing. When Toby turned 15, The family organized a party that reflected everything they had learned about community and love. They invited not only friends and family, but also all the families who had been helped by the Toby Foundation over the years. "Speech, speech," the guests shouted when it was time to cut the cake. Toby, now an articulate and confident teenager, took the microphone that Harrison had rented for the occasion. "I want to thank everyone who came to my party," he began. "But most of all, I want to thank my mother, who always believed in me, and my father Harrison, who taught me that family is about love, not about blood." He paused, searching for the right words. "When I was little, I offered to lend my mother to a sad man who was crying in the park. I didn't know he would end up staying forever and becoming my father. But now I understand that sometimes, when we help someone, we receive much more than we give. I learned that being special isn't a bad thing. It's just being different in a good way. And I learned that when we have real love, we want to share it with everyone. So thank you, Dad, for accepting to be borrowed from my mum and never giving her back," he said, drawing laughter from the audience. Harrison went up to the makeshift stage and hugged his son. "Actually, Toby, I was the one who was borrowed. Your mother lent me to you, and you never gave me back to the empty life I had before." The party lasted late into the night, full of music, dancing, and stories. Children who had been helped by the foundation played together. Mothers who had found support in the network created by Rachel talked and shared experiences. And Harrison watched everything with the deep satisfaction of someone who had found his true purpose in life. That same night, when the house was finally empty and the family was alone again, they sat on the backyard bench for their traditional talk. 15 years, said Rachel. "How quickly time has passed." "And how he's grown," added Harrison. "Remember when he offered to lend you to me? He could barely tie his own shoes, and now he's talking about love and family with the wisdom of a philosopher." "He was always wise," said Rachel. "He just learned to express that wisdom better." "You know what?" said Toby, who had appeared in the backyard still wearing his party shirt. "I remember that day in the park." "You really remember?" asked Harrison, surprised. "You were very little." "I do remember. I remember you were very sad, crying all alone. And I remember thinking, my mother always makes me feel better when I'm sad. She can make this man feel better too." "What else do you remember?" "I remember that when we got home I saw you looking at our small table and our simple house, and I realized you had never seen a real family before." The boys, now teenagers, observation was surprisingly insightful. "And now?" asked Rachel. "What do you see when you look at our family?" "Now I see that we're not just a family. We're like a center of love that spreads to other people. We help other families find what we found." "And what is it that we found?" asked Harrison. Toby thought for a moment, searching for the right words to express a complex concept. "We found that love isn't something we keep just for ourselves. Love is something that grows when we share it, like that Bible story of the loaves and fishes. The more we give, the more we have." Harrison hugged his son, moved by his maturity. "Where did you learn that?" "From both of you," said Toby simply. "You taught me that when we truly love, we want everyone to be happy too." In that moment, the three understood that Toby had grasped the essence of everything they had built together. It wasn't just about a family that had formed through unusual circumstances, but about how genuine love has the power to multiply and transform entire communities. Over the years, the story of Harrison, Rachel, and Toby became locally famous. Newspapers wrote about the Toby Foundation and its origins. Television programs featured stories about the family that had turned a chance encounter into a support network that had already benefited hundreds of families. But for them, the true measure of success wasn't in the media or public recognition. It was in the small daily victories, in every special needs child who secured a spot in an inclusive school through the Foundation's programs, in every single mother who found dignified employment through the network of contacts Rachel had built, in every family that discovered they were not alone in their struggles. Toby, now 17, had become a confident and articulate young man. He was finishing high school at a regular school, with specialized support when needed. His plans included studying psychology at university with the goal of working with families of special needs children. "I want to help other families discover what ours discovered," he would say when asked about his future plans. "I want other children to know that being different is a good thing and that other mothers know they are not alone." Harrison, now 52, had found a perfect balance between managing the construction company and the work at the foundation. His company remained prosperous, but now operated with clear social values that attracted both employees and clients who shared that philosophy. Rachel, at 40, had become a respected businesswoman in the cleaning sector and a reference in corporate social responsibility. Her company, Care Clean Services, employed over 100 people, always prioritizing the hiring of people in socially vulnerable situations. But more important than all these professional successes was what they had built as a family. 15 years after that meeting in the park, they still maintained the same simple traditions that had initially united them: family dinners every night, weekend walks, conversations on the backyard bench when there were important decisions to make. During one of these conversations, a few months before Toby's high school graduation, the young man made a proposal that surprised his parents. "Do you want to adopt another child?" he asked without preamble. "Where did that idea come from?" asked Rachel. "From Heather. She was telling me about an 8-year-old girl who came to the foundation last week. Her parents died in an accident, and she has no one. She's in the shelter, but you know how hard it is for special needs children to find adoptive families." Toby was referring to Chloe, a girl with mild cerebral palsy who had come to the foundation through social services. She was a sweet and intelligent child, but her physical limitations meant few families were interested in adoption. "Have you thought about this seriously?" asked Harrison. "I have. I know I'll be leaving home for university soon. You'll be alone, and I know you have a lot of love to give. And Chloe, she reminds me of me when I was little. She needs a family that understands that being special isn't a problem." Toby's suggestion deeply touched Harrison and Rachel. They had talked a few times about having other children, but had never made a definitive decision. "What do you think?" Harrison asked Rachel after Toby went to sleep. "I think our son is right," she said. "We have love to spare, we have experience with special needs children, and we have the means to provide everything a child needs." "And do you feel ready to start over? Chloe is 8. It will be like going back to the beginning with Toby. The difference is that now we know what we're doing. We know what challenges to expect, and we know how to handle them. And we know every minute of effort is worth it." The following month they visited Chloe at the shelter. The girl was small for her age, used a wheelchair to get around, but had bright eyes and an infectious smile. When Toby saw her, she was drawing alone in the shelter's courtyard. "Hi," said Toby, approaching. "I'm Toby. Can I see your drawing?" Chloe looked at him shyly, but showed him the paper where she had drawn a house with a family in front of it. "It's a happy family," said Toby. "Do you have a family?" "No," said Chloe quietly. "But one day I will. The ladies here say every child deserves a family." "That's true," said Toby. "And you know what? I know a family that's looking for a special girl to love." "Special how?" "Special like you and me, different but in a good way." During the following visits, Chloe began to open up to the family. They discovered she was extremely intelligent, loved books, and had a talent for drawing. Her physical disability did not affect her cognitive abilities, only her mobility. "Do you really want to adopt me?" she asked directly to Harrison and Rachel during one of the visits. "We do," said Rachel, "if you want to be part of our family." "What about Toby? Will he like having a sister?" "He already does," said Toby, who was present. "I'm the one who suggested to my parents that we adopt you." "Why?" "Because family isn't about being perfect. It's about loving each other the way we are. And you're already perfect the way you are." The adoption process took 6 months, during which Chloe regularly visited the family's home. Harrison adapted one of the rooms for her needs, installed ramps where necessary, and informed himself about best practices for children with cerebral palsy. Rachel researched inclusive schools and specialized therapies. Toby spent hours talking with Chloe about what it was like to have a disability, sharing his own experiences and strategies for dealing with difficulties. When Chloe finally moved into the family home, Toby was finishing his last year of high school. Instead of feeling pressured by sharing his parents' attention, he became a protective and caring brother. "Want me to teach you how to do a puzzle?" he offered to Chloe on her first day at home. "I know how," she said. "I know you know. But I learned that some things are more fun when you do them together with someone." In the following months, the house filled again with childlike energy. Chloe, initially shy and reserved due to the traumas of abandonment, gradually opened up and revealed a vibrant and curious personality. She adapted quickly to her new school, made friends, and discovered a passion for painting. Harrison transformed the utility area into an improvised studio where Chloe could practice her art without worrying about mess. "Dad," said Chloe one evening, using for the first time the word she had hesitated to pronounce, "can I paint a picture of our family?" "Of course, honey. How do you want it to be?" "I want to paint us on the backyard bench, talking. That's where we make the important decisions, right?" Chloe's observation showed how quickly she had grasped the family dynamics. In just a few months, she already knew and participated in all the family traditions. When Toby graduated from high school, his class chose him to give the graduation speech. Standing on the stage, in front of hundreds of people, he spoke about overcoming challenges, family, and love. "I want to dedicate my graduation to 3 people," he said. "My mother, who taught me that being different is being special. My father, who taught me that family is about choice, not about blood. And my sister Chloe, who taught me that it's never too late to increase our capacity to love. When I was a child, I offered to lend my mother to a stranger who was sad. Today I understand that what happened that day wasn't a loan, it was a miracle." It was the beginning of a family that grew not just in number, but in love and purpose. In the audience, Harrison, Rachel, and Chloe applauded, deeply moved. The journey that had begun with a 7-year-old offering comfort to an adult in crisis had transformed into something far greater than any of them could have imagined. After graduation, Toby was accepted into university with a full scholarship for a psychology degree. Before leaving for campus, he organized a farewell party that brought together all the families touched by the Toby Foundation over the years. "You're not losing a son," he told Harrison and Rachel during the party. "You're gaining a psychologist who will dedicate his life to helping families like ours. And I'm not losing a brother," added Chloe. "I'm gaining proof that special people can achieve anything they set their minds to." During Toby's university years, Chloe flourished under Harrison and Rachel's undivided care. By 12, she had become a talented artist, with her work displayed in local galleries. Part of the income from her sales was donated to the Toby Foundation, following the example of generosity she had learned from her family. The bond between Chloe and Toby remained strong despite the distance. He came home every weekend, always with university stories and new knowledge he wanted to share with his sister. "Chloe," he said once during a talk on the backyard bench, "do you remember what it was like before you came into our family?" "I remember," she said, now an articulate preteen. "It was lonely and scary. But why?" "Because I want you to understand something important. What happened to us wasn't luck. It was the result of people choosing to love more than to protect themselves." "How so?" "Dad could have stayed in the park feeling sorry for himself forever. Mom could have raised me without accepting help from anyone. I could have walked right past you at the shelter without suggesting you become part of our family. But nobody did that. And what does that mean? It means love is a choice we make every day, and family is something we build with those choices." Chloe absorbed the lesson with the seriousness that characterized her reflections. "So I'll make those choices too, when I grow up?" she asked. "You already do," said Toby. "Every time you draw a picture and donate the money to help other kids, you're choosing love. Every time you're kind to someone at school who's being left out, you're building family." When Toby graduated in psychology at 23, the family organized another big celebration. This time, Chloe, now 15, was the one who gave the main speech. "My brother Toby," she said, standing before the gathered family, "taught me that being special isn't a limitation, it's a responsibility. The responsibility to show the world that different can be wonderful. Today he graduates as a psychologist, and I know he will help many families discover what ours discovered, that love has no limits when we choose not to place limits on it. Thank you, Toby, for suggesting our parents adopt me. Thank you for showing me that siblings don't have to divide love, they multiply it. And thank you for teaching me that family isn't about being perfect, it's about being true. Toby hugged his sister, moved. Thank you, Chloe, for agreeing to be part of our crazy family. Crazy? She asked, pretending to be indignant. Crazy in the best way, he clarified. Crazy enough to believe a sad businessman could become a wonderful father. Crazy enough to start a foundation that has helped over 1,000 families. Crazy enough to adopt an 8-year-old girl when they already had a grown son. So I love our crazy family, said Chloe. After graduation, Toby opened a practice specializing in family therapy for families with special needs children. Harrison helped with the initial investment, but insisted it be a formal loan, with a contract and everything, so Toby would have the full experience of entrepreneurship. Toby's practice quickly became a reference in the region. His unique approach, based on personal experience combined with academic knowledge, attracted families from all over Illinois. Rachel, now 45, also decided to return to her studies. She enrolled in a social administration course, aiming to further professionalize the programs of the Toby Foundation. It's never too late to learn new things, she said to Chloe, who watched her studying at the kitchen table. Aren't you afraid, asked Chloe, of not being able to keep up? I am, admitted Rachel. But my son, Toby, taught me something important. Fear can be a positive motivator. My fear of not making it motivates me to study harder, to try harder. And if it doesn't work out, then at least I'll know I tried, and that attempt has already made me a better person, regardless of the result. Inspired by her mother's example, Chloe intensified her artistic studies. By 16, she already had works exhibited in 3 different galleries and had won 2 national art competitions for young people with disabilities. Mom, she said one night, I want to create an art school for special needs children. That's a beautiful project, sweetheart. How do you imagine it would be? It would be a place where kids like me could discover they are capable of creating beautiful things, where they could express themselves without being judged, where art would be used as therapy. And when do you plan to do this? After I finish high school. I want to study art therapy at university, just like Toby studied psychology. Then I'll come back and open my school. Harrison, who was listening to the conversation from the living room, approached. Have you thought about where this school would be? Not yet, Dad. Why? Because I have a piece of land I was saving for the future. I think I've found the future for it. In the following months, the family began to concretely plan Chloe's art therapy school. Toby offered technical collaboration in the field of psychology. Rachel took responsibility for the administrative and legal aspects, and Harrison handled the physical and financial side. Do you all realize what's happening? Asked Toby during one of the planning meetings. We're creating a support complex for special needs families. The Toby Foundation offers material and emotional support. My practice offers family therapy, and now Chloe's school will offer therapy through art. It's as if we're planting a seed that's been growing for 15 years, said Harrison. No, corrected Chloe. It's as if we are the seed. That meeting in the park was when the seed was planted. Now we are the tree that grew, and our school and our projects are the fruits. Chloe's metaphor perfectly captured the family's evolution over the years. What had begun as a chance encounter between a desperate businessman and a compassionate child had transformed into a support network that had already impacted thousands of lives. When Chloe turned 18, the art therapy school was ready to be inaugurated. It was a spacious and accessible space, with studios adapted for different types of disabilities, a specialized library, and rooms for individual and group therapy. What will we call the school? Asked Harrison on inauguration day. The Family Institute, said Chloe without hesitation. Why? Because it was here that I learned that family isn't about blood or being the same. Family is about choosing to love and be loved. And that's what we want to teach the children who will come here. The inauguration of the Family Institute brought together local authorities, special education professionals, and dozens of families who had been helped by the Sterling Jenkins family's projects over the years. During the ceremony, the mayor of Chicago gave a speech praising the family's social work and announced that the Family Institute would receive official support from the City Hall. It's rare to see a story that began with an act of individual compassion turn into an institution that benefits the entire community, said the mayor. The Sterling Jenkins family represents the best of human solidarity. But for Harrison, Rachel, Toby, and Chloe, the official recognition was secondary. What really mattered were the children who started attending the school in its first days of operation. "Look," said Chloe to the family, watching from the office window as the children played in the yard during recess. "Look how happy they are, how confident they are." It was true, the children played together without embarrassment. Their differences were not a reason for exclusion, but for positive curiosity. Some used wheelchairs, others had Down syndrome, some were autistic, but they all seemed to be exactly where they should be. "This is what I always wanted," said Toby. "A place where being different wasn't a problem." "It's what we all wanted," said Rachel. "A world where our children could be accepted and valued." "And look," said Harrison, pointing to a girl who was teaching another how to mix paints. "They're doing exactly what Toby did that night in the park. They're taking care of each other." That night, the family gathered as always on the backyard bench for their traditional conversation. It was a tradition that had withstood all the changes over the years: moves, the family growing, professional successes, degrees and graduations. "Can you believe what we've built?" asked Rachel, gazing at the stars. "Sometimes it feels surreal," admitted Harrison. "It feels like just yesterday I was sitting alone in that park, thinking my life was over. And now look," said Toby. "We have a foundation that has already helped over 1,000 families, a social enterprise that employs more than 100 people, a clinic that serves hundreds of families a year, and a school that will educate thousands of special needs children." "But you know what's most impressive?" asked Chloe. "It's that all of this started with something very simple: a boy who saw a sad adult and decided to help." "It's true," said Harrison. "Toby, when you offered to lend me your mum, you weren't thinking about changing the world, you were just trying to help a person." "And that taught me something important," said Toby. "We don't need to plan grand things to make a difference. We just need to be willing to love the people who cross our path. And to accept being loved too," added Rachel. "Harrison, if you hadn't accepted our help that night, none of this would have happened." "Sometimes accepting help is harder than offering it," reflected Harrison. "I was so used to solving everything alone that I almost rejected what you were offering." "Good thing you didn't," said Chloe. "Otherwise I'd still be in the shelter, Toby wouldn't have a dad, and you'd be— where would you be?" Harrison thought about the question. Probably still working 14 hours a day, living alone in that empty mansion, thinking financial success was the same thing as success in life. "And our foundation wouldn't exist," said Toby. "Hundreds of families wouldn't have received help." "And I wouldn't have a family," said Chloe. "I wouldn't have discovered I can be an artist. I wouldn't have the school of my dreams." "It's amazing how one decision can change so many lives," said Rachel. "It wasn't one decision," corrected Miguel. "It was thousands of small decisions over the years. Deciding to help, deciding to accept help, deciding to love, deciding to include, deciding to grow." "That's true," agreed Rodrigo. "Every day we choose what kind of family we want to be, and every day we chose to be a family that welcomes, that helps, that grows together." In that moment, observing his family gathered under the stars, Rodrigo remembered that first night when he cried alone in the square. If someone had told him back then that 20 years later he would be there, surrounded by the wife he loved, by the son who had taught him about generosity, and by the daughter who had completed his family, he would have thought it impossible. But there he was, living a life that was richer and more rewarding than any fantasy he could have imagined. "You know what I want to do?" he said suddenly. "What?" they all asked together. "I want to go back to that square. I want to sit on that bench where it all began and thank the universe for putting Miguel in my path." "Good idea," said Carla. "We can walk there." "Now?" asked Anna. "Why not?" said Miguel. "It's a beautiful night, and we have a lot to celebrate." And so, 20 years after that meeting that changed their lives, the family walked through the streets of Chicago toward Millennium Park. The Christmas trees were no longer there, it was the middle of the year, but the square was still lit and welcoming. They sat on the same bench where Rodrigo had cried, and where Miguel had offered the loan from his mother, now they were four people united by love and common purpose. "You want to know something?" said Miguel, breaking the contemplative silence. "Sure," the others replied. "I still remember exactly what I thought when I saw you crying here." "What did you think?" asked Rodrigo. "I thought, that man needs a mother, and since I had the best mother in the world, I offered to lend her to you." "And I thought you were crazy," laughed Rodrigo, a 7-year-old kid offering to lend his mother to a stranger. "But you accepted," said Carla, "and that made all the difference." "You know why I accepted?" asked Rodrigo. "Because in that moment, I was so lost that any offer of kindness seemed like a miracle, and you were my miracle." "Weren't we your miracle too?" asked Anna. "How so?" asked Rodrigo. "You gave Mum the stability she never had, gave me a family when I needed it most, and gave Miguel a father who loves him unconditionally. You were our miracle as much as we were yours." Anna's observation touched all of them deeply. Truly, what had happened in that square hadn't been one person helping others, but people saving each other. "I think that's what defines a real family," said Carla. "It's when everyone becomes better because of everyone else. And when everyone is willing to lend what they have that's best to others," added Miguel. They sat there for hours, talking about the past, present, and future. They talked about the upcoming projects of the Family Institute, about Miguel's plans to write a book on family therapy, about Carla's dream of expanding her company to other cities, about the new artworks Anna was planning. But mostly, they talked about how each of them had changed and grown through the love of family. "You know what my favorite part of our story is?" asked Anna as the conversation began to wind down. "What?" the others asked. "It's that it never ends. Every day we write a little more of our story. With every child we help, every family we welcome, every moment of love we share." "That's true," said Miguel. "Our story isn't about what happened, it's about what keeps happening. And about what is still to happen," added Harrison. "Because as long as there are people needing love and people willing to love, our story will keep growing." When they finally stood up to go back home, the sun was already rising. They had spent the entire night in the park, talking and remembering, just as they had done on that first night 20 years earlier. "You know what I learned tonight?" said Rachel as they walked back. "What?" "That sometimes the most beautiful endings are the ones that never truly end." And she was right. The story that had begun with a boy offering to lend his mother to a sad man didn't have a definitive end. It was a story that continued to be written each day, with every life they touched, with every heart they opened to love. Because, as they had discovered over the years, true love isn't lent, it multiplies. And when it multiplies enough, it ends up transforming not just families, but entire communities. End of story. And now, dear listeners, we'd like to hear from you. What did you think of this story of transformation through love? Have you ever had an experience where a simple act of kindness completely changed your life? Do you believe chance encounters can be more than just coincidences? Share your experiences in the comments. We love reading your real stories of overcoming and love. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving narratives we've prepared for you.